Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast for quilters who are building a business while juggling real life.
I'm Tori from Hey Tori, a quilter, past pattern designer and teacher, and now a digital marketing coach for quilting entrepreneurs.
And I'm Andy from True Blue Quilts, long arm quilter, pattern designer, and quilting instructor.
Between the two of us, we've taught workshops, launched programs, joined summits, and stayed up way too late trying to finish one more quilt binding.
On this show, we're sharing what's worked and what hasn't in our interviews from incredible guests, everyone from quilting solo business owners to CEOs.
If you're running a quilting or creative business or dreaming about starting one, you'll find real talk, honest strategies, and a whole lot of support here.
So grab your notebook, grab your pen, and let's dive into another episode of Quilting on the Side.
Welcome back to another episode of Quilting on the Side. My co-host Andy is not with us today. This is Tori coming to you with our next guest, who is Brooke from Brooke's Bitichin Stitches. Hi, Brooke.
Tori, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and hello to everyone joining.
I'm so excited you agreed to be here today. What I want to start with is, how did you start quilting?
A very good question. So I've only been quilting maybe 7 or 8 years, believe it or not. So I've always been a crafty person. When I was a young girl, I would hand embroider. I would make magnets with perler beads. I loved coloring. And so then as I became an adult, I really never stopped crafting. So I would make, chocolate candies out of molds. I loved cake decorating, still would color as an adult. And so there was a local quilt shop that I had lived near when I was living in Western North Carolina. And it had a really cool building. And the front sign was like hot pink and all these bright colors. And I would drive by the sign, and it was the name of the store was something quilting. And I would say, quilting. Okay, I wonder what that is. What's involved? And then I would quickly dismiss it because I didn't have a sewing machine. I also had no idea how to sew a button. So I'm thinking, yeah, that may just not be for me. But in the back of my mind, it was always there. And so then a couple years later, a friend of mine, she was telling me that she quilted and how much she loved it. And not just quilting, but also the whole process of buying fabric, because that's like a whole separate hobby. And she was telling me, the different ways that you can quilt. And she had been quilting for years. She had learned from her mother and her grandmother. And so I wanted to explore it a little bit more. So I was talking to my mom. And I was saying to her, I think I want to try this whole quilting thing. I don't know anything about it. I'm just really interested in it. I don't have a sewing machine, but I want to do some more research. And because I'm very much a research person, that's the engineering background in me. And so I start doing some research, and I find that quilting, there's so much out there, so many different types of quilting and piecing and just so many things. So I also saw that there was machine embroidery as well. So I'm telling my mom, Mom, remember when grandma used to teach me how to hand embroider pillowcases during my summer vacation as a kid? And I was like, now there's machines that actually do it. Like, can you believe that? Grandma would be so impressed with that and seeing that type of machine. And so my mom says to me, for your birthday this year, do you want a sewing machine? I was like, yeah, let's do this. So my friend and I, the one who was quilting, we were doing a pottery class on a Saturday, and next door to this pottery place was a local quilt shop. And so I lived in the Asheville, North Carolina area. And so the quilt shop's name was Asheville Cotton Company. And so my friend and I, we take a stroll over there, and she introduces me to the local quilt shop that she knows very well. We walk in, and I'm just overwhelmed with all these bolts of fabric and all the bright colors. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is speaking to me. And so we go to the machines, and they sold several different brands. And I was telling them, I've never owned a sewing machine. I have no idea about sewing. I need something easy. But I want to be able to sew and quilt on it, and I also want a machine embroider. I was really just really super ambitious going
I was
into
about to
this.
say that's
So
very ambitious.
so the young ladies at the store, they walk me over to a baby lock, and it's a baby lock Verve, smaller embroidery machine model. And we sit down and they show me how the machine is threaded, and how to use the presser feet, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I go home, I call my mom, and I said, I think I found the sewing machine. I think I want the baby lock Verve. So for my birthday, my mom gets me the baby lock Verve. I get the machine, and the Asheville Cotton Company offered classes where every week you would come in with your machine and you would learn how to use it. And so every Thursday night, I would load up my machine, take it to the store, and I learned how to use it. I learned how to turn it on. I learned how to put threaded bobbins. I learned all the terminology. And so my adventures in the sewing machine world started at that time. But see, I didn't even know how to sew a button. So it was like, how did I begin quilting? So in parallel to these classes that were happening on Thursday evenings to teach me how to use my machine, the Asheville Cotton Company was kicking off their Quilt of the Month club. And so every first Saturday or second Saturday of the month, you would join a group of quilters, and the quilt shop would reveal the quilt block of the month. And after like 9 or 10 months, you had enough blocks to create a quilt. So my friend, my quilting friend, she was going to be participating. I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to participate too. So here I am going in. It's $5 quilt club. So you bring your $5, you get your packet of fabric, you get instructions. And the first Saturday, she comes over and we sit down, and I have this block, and she's cutting with a rotary cutter, and she's sewing pieces together, and I'm sitting there. I have no idea what I'm doing, no clue. And so she's saying to me, right sides together, squaring up. Like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. And then I'm using the rotary cutter to cut fabric, and I'm not putting the blade back in. And she's like, oh, we're going to cut our fingers off. So I'm learning all these things on this first weekend of putting together this quilt block. Well, her and I continued to do that for several months as I started learning more and more about making these small blocks. They were perfect. They were like 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 every month. So in the middle of this, another parallel path opens up, and it's the Nashville Cotton Company is hosting their beginners quilting class. I was like, yes, okay, perfect. Sign me up. We're going to take this to the next level. I'm really enjoying things. Now, mind you, like only 3 or 4 months have passed since the beginning of purchasing the sewing machine. So a lot of things are happening. So I take my first beginners quilting class, and I make a lap quilt. And when I'm shopping for the fabric, little did I know at the time, all the fabrics I was choosing were Tula pink. But of course, I didn't know who Tula was, no clue. But all I knew is that I was fixated on these bright, vibrant fabrics and patterns. So I took the beginning quilt class, finished up my year block of the month with the Asheville Cotton Company, and absolutely fell in love with this craft, everything about it. I am vulnerable in this space where what I mean by that is I allow myself to learn from others and just sit back and absorb. And it's at all times. I am no way an expert, no, nor will I ever say that I am. I am a quilter who truly enjoys the sewing process, the picking out the fabric, the designing the patterns now that I'm a pattern designer. But I truly love it, and it's truly a passion for me.
Brooke, I love that everyone around you is so supportive. They're like, yes, come on in. Let's learn this together. Let's do it. You want a sewing machine for your birthday? I got you. Let's pick out a combination sewing and embroidering machine on your first machine, which
Yes.
is so funny. I have a very similar machine, and it's a baby lock, and I love it too. So when you're talking about baby locks, sitting down, I was imagining my own. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember the first time I got my sewing machine. Like, but I love that I feel like you're the ideal student for like every quilt teacher, every quilt shop. We want everyone to be like Brooke, where they come in, they're ready to learn, they're open, they come and they just kind of dive into the fire and learn in making. And it sounds like a wonderful start to quilting.
It's been so fun, and I think for me too, it's a big stress relief. It really is. Being able to sit behind my machine and just let it all go for a couple of hours, and it's just me, the machine, and colorful fabric. That is the best solution to, a weekend or, a busy week at work or a rainy day outside. I just absolutely love it.
So you've mentioned work and you've mentioned being a pattern designer. So I'm curious, how did you go from quilting as a hobby, falling in love with this, to creating patterns and turning it into a business?
Another wonderful question. So honestly, I kind of stumbled upon it. So I'm going to set the stage a little bit with my background. So I am a mechanical engineer by degree, and in the early parts of my career, I was in the automotive industry, and I was a project engineer, a process engineer, and my role really involved taking a process and documenting it into instructions where coworkers and colleagues could follow to put something together. And so with that, it's always been something that I really love. Um, and I feel like, not to pat myself on the back, but I'm really good at it. I really enjoy it. Um, so I'm in quilting. I'm learning how to quilt. I'm doing all the things. And several years ago, I wanted to design a quilt of the state of Michigan. And so I was just up one evening, kind of doodling on a piece of paper, and I create this quilt of the state of Michigan.
In Michigan. You're in South North Carolina, South Carolina, right? Why Michigan?
So, Michigan is my home, and I recently returned back to Michigan after 18 years in North Carolina. So, we were in Western North Carolina, Asheville area that I mentioned. So, I was there 18 years, and we came home late last year. So, I am officially back in Michigan. So, when I was in North Carolina, I'm missing Michigan. I'm missing everything Michigan. And so I'm designing this quilt, and I designed a pixelated quilt. Didn't know it was pixelated at the time, but it was tiny squares. And I make the state of Michigan. And I chose colors that I really love. So when I think of Michigan, I think of the water. So your teals and your blues. And I thought, what color really pairs well with that? So I chose gray. Again, I'm not a pattern designer at this point in my life. I'm just doodling on a piece of grid paper. That's it. I put that design to the side. A couple years go by. My husband and I are making a trip to Michigan. We're going to be spending a whole week in Michigan. We're going to visit Mackinac Island. We're going to go to some of the places that I grew up. I'm going to show my husband all the Michigan things. And he says to me one night, like, this is like a month and a half before our trip. He says, have you ever thought about um, making a Michigan quilt? I was like, it's kind of funny because a couple years I did, and I just never actually made it. He's like, you should maybe make it. We'll take it with us. We'll take a bunch of pictures, in the places that you grew up, and we'll just kind of take it on a quilt tour. I'm like, that's a really good idea. So a month and a half to go. I am now pulling out that old design, putting some finishing touches on it, and I start shopping for fabric. I I wanted the fabric of the quilt to be personal. So of course I talked about the teals and the blues for the water, but when I talk about the actual state of Michigan, the palm, because Michiganders, we're big on the palm. I wanted to showcase fabrics that were specific to the cities in Michigan. So Traverse City cherries. We have several lighthouses in Michigan. Of course, the Motor City, which is huge into the automotive industry. And you can't forget our two big football teams, Michigan State as well as U of M. So I start looking for fabric, and I'm on Spoonflower because it's more customized. And I'm finding fabric that is just absolutely perfect for this quilt. It is little pieces of fabric with cars on it, fabric with football helmets. So I get this fabric, it comes in, and I I need to start cutting my squares. And so I'm cutting my squares using AccuQuilt because as an engineer and a quilter at the same time, I'm all about efficiency as well as quality. Um, so I have an AccuQuilt, cutting my squares, and we get to the point where how am I going to make sure that all these squares are lined up? It's starting to stress me out a little bit because, again, the engineering in me, point on point, everything has to be perfect. So I do some research and I find a company called 10 Sisters EDC Piecing Grids, and they're fusible grids for pixelated patterns. So since the beginning of my pattern development days, I've been using these grids. Um, so I put together this quilt. It's the night before we're leaving for Michigan. I'm finishing that final stitch and get it ready. We head to Michigan. So we're on our drive to Michigan, and I'm talking to my husband, and I said to him, I was like, just for fun, let's go to some quilt stores. Let's take this quilt, this Michigan quilt, and asked some of the stores in Michigan if they would ever buy a pattern that was made from this quilt. So we're in the Metro Detroit area. We go to about 5 different quilt stores. And here I am. I've never pitched anything. I'm not a salesperson at all. I just walk in, I talk to the person up front, and I ask, do you buy patterns for your store? And if not, may I talk to that person? So that person comes out in every store, and I say to them, I'm a Michigander. I'm from here. And I've recently designed a quilt of the state of Michigan. And so I unveil it and I show them and I say to them, would this be a pattern that you would even buy for your store? And every store said yes. And so I'm walking out these stores, and by the end of the day, I'm saying to my husband, I think I may be onto something here. So that night in our hotel room, Brooks Bitichin Stitches LLC was born. I'm on the computer. I'm hot on the LLC page, registering myself. I'm working with a company online to design my logo. Like I'm doing all these things from the hotel room. And that's how the journey began, literally on a whim, no idea what I was doing, but knew that I had a passion and love for it. And I had something that I think maybe other quilters may like too. And so here we are. I launched in the middle of the pandemic, of course, the worst time to start a business. It was 2021 when I launched. And so I've been in business. It'll be 5 years this fall.
That's so exciting. So you started with the one Michigan quilt. I love that to me, the word that comes to mind is like grassroots. Like you're like, I have this cool thing. Anybody else interested in it? And then you're like, then you jumped in and made a business out of it. And it's really cool to hear your story on that. What I want to know where you are now. So you started with one quilt, and now does your business look like?
Oh my gosh. So my business has evolved. So with the Michigan quilt, I started thinking Michigan's my home. We're proud Michiganders. So I thought other people from other states, they're proud of where they're from too. So I launched a home pattern series. And so over the past several years, I have created a pixelated quilt pattern for every single state in the United States. And so, wrapping up early July will be the last unveiling of the final 2 states, Alaska and Hawaii. So exciting. But every single state will be completed at that time. So I'm very excited. I think the cool thing about my patterns and the home pattern series is that there are 3 patterns that come in the quilt pattern. So you've got a throw quilt, but you also have mini quilts. And I think they're cool because you can take those mini designs, make them into pillows. You could take that applique, put it on a t-shirt. You could collect a bunch of different mini quilts from places that you've traveled and create a larger quilt. And the coolest feature is each of the patterns come with a heart, and you place that heart with the city that you call home. So it's super personal. Give it to your loved ones, your kids going off to college. Um, so right now, I believe I have 70 or 80 patterns total on my website. So I've got the home pattern series, and then now I'm starting to dip into more unique patterns, just like this one behind me, which is my number one favorite quilt pattern, and my number one seller, Duck Duck Beep. My husband and I are Jeepers, and so another topic a few years ago, we were going to be rock climbing in Drummond Island with our Jeep. My husband says to me, "Have you thought about designing a quilt pattern with a Jeep?" And I thought, no, but that's super cool. Thinking to myself, I don't know if anyone would buy it. Hundreds of patterns have been sold since then. It is absolutely a bestseller for me. So much fun. I love when quilters, they will tag me in posts, they'll send me photos. They customize this pattern so they make it a Jeep of their favorite color. Some of them have even appliqued a duck that they've put on the dash, which I think is super cool. And so then last year, with the success of the front of the Jeep, I designed the back of the Jeep, which is called Beep You Later. And that has a customized license plate because us Jeepers, we name our Jeeps. It's a serious thing. So I also have that pattern too. So a lot of fun things. So I'm starting to now kind of move into the more unique quilt patterns, but always sticking to my roots, which is pixelated quilt design.
There's so much I want to reiterate for our audience here. Like, before I do though, can you explain really quick what the ducks are?
Yes. Okay. So the way that I understand it is that there was a woman several years ago, many years ago, and she wanted to make people smile. And so she had a rubber duck in her Jeep one day and decided to take this rubber duck and place it on another Jeep that was in a parking lot, I believe. And that just kind of started this trend. Now, I may be completely butchering the story, audience. I apologize, but that's the way I've heard it. I could be totally wrong, but I think it's a beautiful story. And I know for me, when we're in stores and we come out and there's a little duck on the Jeep, I absolutely love it. Makes me excited. There are some Jeepers that aren't into the duck thing, but I think it's a lot of fun, especially for the kids.
No, I agree. I've heard it before. I've seen it done a few times. I've always wondered what I have a neighbor down the street with a purple Jeep, and they have a row of colorful rubber ducks on their dash. And every time it passes, I smile. I'm like, I know what those are for. Like, it's like you're tagging
Yes.
other people. You're like, hey, Jeep, I see you.
Yes, exactly. I see you. And sometimes they'll put like their Instagram name on it or, like a cute little message, like smile or have a great day. Just think it's positive. It's positivity. Let's share it.
That's so cute. It's like you're in your own little club.
Yeah, we totally. Yeah. There's like handshake or there's things, not handshakes, but when you're driving and you see another Jeeper, you put up the peace sign. It's just, yeah, it's a whole thing. It's
I
a
love that.
culture.
All right, so let me talk about what I heard in your story that I think a lot of our listeners can pull away from what you've just described. First, you started with a series. So you had a series lined up where you've had, did you say, I might miss the timing, a year and a half of releasing patterns?
So I started releasing the states in 2021 and I'm wrapping it up this year. So it took me 5 years to do all of them. It would have taken me sooner. But let's be honest. We don't as pattern designers, we're not making patterns every month. We've got to take some breaks, focus on other things, do some projects that refill our cups, get us excited and get back inspirational. So yeah, it took me about 5 years to get through all the states, and designing the patterns, and then officially releasing the last one in early July this year.
So you had a business plan that's pretty much you could have stuck to for 5 years, essentially, which I love
Yes.
that. So you started with the series, you created a system where every pattern has a plan, right? You know that the pattern is going to be the pixelated quilt, it has the mini quilt, it has the heart. So you knew exactly what was coming for each and every pattern from that standpoint. And your discipline, Brooke, I think it's amazing how you were able to pull this off all 50 states in 5 years with the same pixelated um, technique. Or is that a good way to say it? Technique?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a technique for sure.
I think I want to applaud you for that because the discipline that it takes to finish a project like that is immense. And it is something that as business owners that we need to take into account when we're planning out our projects. Like, do I have the discipline to finish this? And if you don't, that's okay. You may just need to switch your plan up a bit. Or like you said, drop in those fun projects that kind of shake things up for you so you can get back into what you're doing. And I love the Jeep stuff. Bringing in your hobby into your business, I think was smart because you knew there was an audience there that was going to, well, you weren't, the way you said it wasn't like you were sure, but you knew there was something there.
Something there, and I knew that there was it was like a niche, there was something special. I just didn't realize how special it was going to be, and it makes me so excited, makes my heart absolutely warm. I have a story to share about the Jeep quilt, if I could, with listeners. Um, so my husband and I are in Drummond Island. We're in a Jeep jamboree. We rock climb in our Jeep. So we are getting ready, excuse me, for a day of rock climbing. And I'm on my way to the porta potty and I have my name badge around my neck. And a gentleman stops me as soon as I'm getting to the porta potty and he says, "Excuse me." He says, "I see your name badge. It says Brooke Stambersky." And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Did you design a Jeep quilt?" And I thought, "Get out of here. Are you kidding me?" I said, "I sure did." He says, "My wife is making your pattern right now. In fact, her quilt is on the long arm. She's working on it right now." He says, "Can I call her while we're here right now, to say hello?" And I said, "Absolutely." So he tells his wife that, I'm there, I'm in the flesh, I'm real. And he says to me, "Keep this a secret." He says, "My son who's driving his Jeep today doesn't know, and it's going to be his Christmas gift." And I thought that that was absolutely an amazing thing. I loved it. I loved that he stopped me right before going to the porta potty. Like it's a good, memorable story. And I love, it was full circle for me for someone to actually see me out in the world and recognize me and just want to say that pattern is so cool. That meant the world to me.
So yeah, I was over here clapping like I know. If you're listening on the podcast, I muted myself because I got so excited. That is so cool. I think that does speak to the power of knowing what you like, but also for those that, if your only hobby is quilting, looking outside of what other quilters enjoy to bring into your patterns can be good too. That's where the quilter survey that's presented every year. At H&H, which is coming up really soon, or actually this episode might air right after, but the quilter survey comes out and we learn from that quilters have other hobbies, right? And that makes sense because quilts take so long to make that we like to sprinkle in other fun things we do. I know gardening is a big one. That one always comes up. Reading is one. And apparently we got some Jeepers, which is
We sure
awesome.
do.
It's so awesome. I love that story so much. Oh, and that makes me think of the last thing I wanted to point out for our audience with your patterns is that each one is made for customization, which is encouraging other people to be so creative with what you offer so they can use it more like a template to create something very personal for them.
Absolutely. I love that you call it a template because it is. I want quilters to see my patterns and make it their own because we spend so much time as well as money on our hobby and on patterns and buying fabric and all the notions and making it personal, not just with the fabric, but maybe adding a touch of the applique heart to your state, or the applique duck to the Jeep. I love that. Make it your own. That's what it's all about. This is supposed to be fun and
Yeah.
exciting.
I love that you brought the fun in, like for yourself as well. Like, I love that.
Yes,
We
very
need
much
that.
so.
Okay, so you've got your first pattern. So let me take you back to where you had your first pattern. You were ready to announce it to the world. So how did you get the word out about what you were doing?
No marketing experience, as I mentioned. I am not a salesperson at all. The early days in my late teens when I was working at clothing stores, I usually was the greeter. I was not the person trying to push the products. And so when I printed my first booklet and I had the pattern in hand, I started going to my local quilt shops. And what I did though first was I designed a North Carolina quilt. So before I did that, I thought if I'm going to go in person to my quilt shops in this area, I need to market a quilt that they're going to be excited about. So I created the Tar Heel State, which is on behalf of the state of North Carolina. So I make this quilt. I take it to the quilt stores with the actual pattern so they can see these are my patterns, which are always in booklet form. They're 8 pages of full color. They've got the cutting instructions and assembly instructions, applique templates when applicable. And I go in and I said, these are my patterns. This is the finished quilt. Would you be interested in wholesaling with me? And every store was absolutely on board. So within no time, they were showcasing the Tar Heel State. Another quilt that I made around that time was Anne the Rocket's Red Glare, which is the United States. Um, so they were carrying my quilts. They were actually using the samples in the store because that was really helping promote my patterns. My Asheville Cotton Company, my local quilt store, they actually had a little section kind of dedicated to me. I just absolutely loved it. Had all my patterns. Um, and I also taught at the Cotton Company as well. So the store knew me, people knew of me. So that helped as well. Marketing for me, I'll be honest, I'm not good with Instagram and Facebook. I'm just the social media. I want it to be fun. Keeping up on posts, it's a little intimidating. I can't keep up with it on a regular basis. So marketing for me is really that communication factor. So either verbally on the phone, via Zoom, or in person. And I really think that's how I built my presence within North Carolina to start because it was really personal. I was literally in a car going to the store with my pattern, with quilt samples, and introducing myself. So that's where I really started. Now, as far as branching out to other stores, I started partnering with Shop Hop Inc. So that's another thing I've been doing for the past few years, where I do some marketing on their Facebook pages, but I also um, donate my patterns to prize winners in various states. So that's been very helpful. I offer quilt stores in different states a wholesale discount for their first order with me. So that's been great. I also have contacted stores just by email. That's kind of been um, successful, but then again, sometimes not as well. Sometimes your email gets put in spam. You don't hear from people, but sometimes you do. And when you do hear from them, they're so excited. They want to partner with you. They want to do that wholesale business with you. So I've also done that as well. But I typically don't advertise and market myself on social media. I want to go back to the old school. I'm an 80s baby. So I want to take it back to the good old communication and talking to people, meeting with them, even emailing. Has been successful in different areas. But like I said, yeah, I want to take it back to the point of just having that good old conversation. Let's take a moment. Let me talk to you about my patterns, how excited I am and enthusiastic, and how I want to partner with you.
Yes. I love when you came on the podcast, I was like, yes, we're going to talk about this because full disclosure, Brooke is in the DMMC. And the digital
Yeah.
marketing coaching program that I run. And we've talked about how do we promote outside of social media. Now she's done all of this without me, just so you know. Everything that she shared, this is something that she was doing. But I love your perspective because I feel like so many of us start pattern design and then we think, and I see this trend in questions that are being asked in certain Facebook groups and certain business spaces where they start with social media. And you started in person. And I feel like that is a strong way to start is by starting with relationships and looking at your local area. What can you do locally to help solidify a concept, to help get your name out about a pattern, to start maybe even teaching or demonstrating your patterns within the local area, and then using that for your social media. If you even want to continue to be on social media, I have, especially in the last few months, I have been really encouraging everyone in the DMMC and in other places to have fun with social media. It's very much, Instagram used to be all about perfection. and it's exhausting. And I think all of us would know, if we really think about it, that perfection only lasts a certain amount of time because we are human. There's no way we can keep up with that. And social media is so much more fun when you can just be social. So I love the
Yes.
fact that you took your business from the grassroots. You started locally. You went and walked to the different shops to find the specific people you needed to talk to, and then use social media as like a second thing. And I think that that is a perspective that needs to be shared more often here on the podcast, here in person, talking to other people about, is that social media is very visible. That's where we see so much. That's why we start with it, because we're like, oh, I always see pattern designers on Instagram, so that's where I need to be. Not necessarily. Not when you can look at other ways to promote your patterns. And one thing I like to think about is, what did they do in the 80s when there was no internet? How did they get the word out?
Absolutely. And you think about too, as quilters, some of us really enjoy having our quilts in different quilt shows. And that's another way at how I advertise. I advertised as Brooke Stambersky, Brooke's Bitchin' Stitches, every time I entered my quilt into a show. And I was in shows in North Carolina as well as Tennessee. Love doing it, but that was another way that I was getting my name out. Another thing that I would do is when my husband and I would travel, I would take quilt patterns with me because I always went to quilt stores. Let's be honest. In my personal life, I love to go to quilt stores. It's therapy. And if I'm going in there anyways, I might as well share my business. So I would bring patterns with me. If they were interested, great. If they weren't, that's okay too. Because at the end of the day, I'm just sharing myself physically in person with my patterns. And let's talk about possible wholesale opportunities that may be there. So I know some people that are listening, they may be nervous. That first time going into a store, and what do you say? Because I hear that a lot with quilt pattern designers. How do you get your foot in the door? What do you do? And honestly, I was absolutely nervous the first time I did it. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew what to do in that quilt store was to hand them that credit card and they would swipe. That was it. I didn't know how to market myself. But what I did was I let my passion for the craft come through. And for me, it's not about, at the end of the day, it's not about just the business that I own. It's about the passion. And the minute that my passion for quilting starts to feel like a business, it's done. Like there's just no more for me because I want this to always be fun. So when I go into these stores, I'm sharing that passion. That passion is coming through. I'm excited. Let's talk about how I have all those squares lined up. How do you even do that? Let me share with you the grid that I use. And you'll be surprised. Quilt store owners, they want to learn more. They want to talk to you. And then also teaching. Teaching was another outlet that I used to get my name out there. I would teach collage quilting, no specific collage patterns, but just collage quilting in general. And I would share, I'm a quilt pattern designer. Here's some of my quilts. Here's my website. If you're interested, great. Here it is. And so that was another way. But one thing I have to say is that I am not afraid of putting myself out there and taking the risk. And I've built this business completely by myself. I am a mighty woman of one. Of course, my husband is with me. He's always the man behind the quilt, holding it square to take photos. Um, but I am an employee of one. And so, in order to ensure that my business is successful, I need to put myself out there sometimes in uncomfortable situations. But when I walk away from those situations, I'm so proud of myself because I've thought outside of the box. I put myself out there and I think to myself, you did this. Like, this is really cool. You built a quilt pattern design company in 6 years. Go you.
I feel so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my god, that sounded like a little kid, but you know what I mean. I have little
I
kids, so
do.
we
No, I
celebrate.
do. Absolutely. And a lot of people, like I said, they get nervous. They have ideas. Do I really have a business? Yes, you do. If you have an idea, you have a business. You just need to take the time to do some research, think it through. Is it something that you want to embark in? And then just let the magic happen and put yourself out there. And at the end, you'll learn so much about yourself, but also other quilters around you.
Yes, and you're talking about risk, and I think that's a really important conversation. Maybe we can't go full on into it today, but I do wanna say that risk can start small. Like, you can just walk into your local quilt shops just to get the vibe. Like, just walk in, say hello, buy something or not, just walk around and ask them, "What kind of classes do you have?" And then if it naturally comes up, then you can suggest, like, I teach, or I am a pattern designer and I have patterns. Would you be interested in seeing any? And if they're super busy, you can always ask for an appointment. You can, or just like I said, start by walking in and looking around, seeing if it's the right vibe for what you offer. I'm using the word vibe a lot lately.
No, but you're right though. It's spot on. Is it the right vibe? Because I'll share with you, there were quilt stores that I visited where I came in and I walked in and I thought, no, this isn't the vibe for me. This isn't my place. I don't, this is my patterns probably won't work well in this particular store. That's okay. I'm gonna buy some fabric and probably some notions and we're gonna leave. Because I love supporting my local quilt stores. But then there are other stores like the Asheville Cotton Company when I was in North Carolina that absolutely embraced my patterns. And they were the first quilt store that partnered with me. And they'll always hold a very special place in my heart because of that.
I love that full circle. Like, you went there to learn and then you got to
Yes,
be in business with
exactly.
them. That is just wonderful. So, Brooke, there's two more things I want to talk to you about. One is you have a full-time job and this business on the side. How do you fit all the things in?
That's another very good question. You're just full of great questions today, Tori. um, so sharing with everyone, I'm an engineer by degree. I did engineering for about 13 years in automotive. And then I transitioned to the last 14 years. I'm a project manager. I lead a team of project managers for my company. So with that, for me to say that I'm organized is a understatement. My life is organized and scheduled to a T every single day. I know what I'm doing. And so that's how I've been able to do both. My business typically runs on autopilot. To be honest, I focus on my business in the evening hours after my day career and then also on the weekends. There are times where my business is very busy and sometimes it takes up majority of my weekends. And there's other times where I've got more downtime and I can dedicate to my business in different ways. Maybe I am designing a new pattern, or maybe I am going to be making a quilt for Brooke. And it has nothing to do with my business because I need to refresh and recharge too. So I make sure that at the beginning of every month, I actually sit down and I put out goals. What are the things that I want to accomplish for the month? So that may be a release of a new pattern. That may be a design of a new pattern, or it may be I want to do some research about a pixelated pattern, have an idea in my head. Let me think about it a little bit more. Let me get some inspiration. Go outside, look at flowers, go for a walk, and just kind of let nature inspire me in different ways. Um, so that's how I kind of do my creativity. But everything, I do plan everything. So that is how I juggle. And if it wasn't for me being this project manager of all things, I apply it to my day career and then I also apply it to my business as well.
And that's a crossover that keeps coming up, and I love that, how you've integrated what you've learned outside of quilting into quilting. I love that. I do wanna say that a lot of our listeners have that struggle where they just can't fit everything in. And if you're like, "Well, I don't know how to project manage," you could start with time blocking. Time blocking is amazing. Just setting
Amazing.
exactly. Like, setting time aside
Absolutely
to make sure you
amazing.
got all your big stuff in a bucket of time, and that could be a great way to start.
Yes. And make a list.
Yes.
That list, I'll be honest, everybody, I have Post-it notes that are sitting next to me. I'm old school. We're pen and papering it here. I have a planner. It's pen and paper. Have I gone digital? No, no plans to either. I am a pen and paper girl who loves to cross off every task. I get that enjoyment, that thrill. I'm almost thinking maybe I should get one of the sticker charts, the chore charts that young kids have these days. Brooke accomplished this. She gets a sticker today. Like that makes me excited. but take it back to pen and paper. Just make a list. These are the things that I want to accomplish today. But most importantly, I want to share with listeners is to give yourself grace. If you do not accomplish those 20 things on your list for the month, it is 100% okay. Do not fret. You will get to it when you can. And so I have definite times where, especially over the past 6 or 8 months, that has happened to me. And what I do is I say, Brooke, it's totally fine. What are the top important things from this list? What's most urgent? Are there things that you can focus on in the upcoming days? Maybe in a week, maybe two. Let's just reset ourselves. And that is how I manage times when life gets a little crazy with a lot of things happening and I'm juggling my full-time career as well as my side business and in my personal life too, and all the great things that we've got going on.
Speaking of which, that leads me right into my next question. So I know that Brooke had a huge change last year, and I would love to ask you about that. So you moved last year and you took
Yeah.
your business with you. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did? And I'd love to hear any advice you have for our listeners about moving your pattern design business.
Absolutely. So July of last year, my husband and I purchased a home in Michigan. And we purchased the home and we embark in immediate home improvement projects. And we're not just talking minor changing of blinds, everyone. We're talking about renovation. And so it's July, August, September. My husband and I are coming to Michigan every other week. We are driving from North Carolina to Michigan during this time frame. And we're managing different contractors that are in the house doing all the amazing things. My husband and I both work remote. Um, and so we're in Michigan. And during this time, I'm thinking to myself, like, we're going to be moving. I don't know when the North Carolina house is going to sell, but I need to start thinking about how am I going to manage my quilting business as well as this cross state, multi hundreds of miles move. And so I started thinking about and reflecting because of those long drives. I had a long time to think about how I was going to prepare myself for this move. And one of the biggest things that I kept telling myself was, Brooke, you have to show up for your customers. You have to show up for them. So I started immediately going into a list that I created of the newsletters that needed to go out between August and the end of the year. I also started thinking about the social media posts because with every newsletter that I do, there's a social media post as well as a blog as well. Now, I use Wix. Wix is my business platform. I'm also on Etsy as well. I'm on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and my blog is on Wix. My newsletter is on Flowdesk. So a lot of integration. I share that because there's a lot of integration and I use that to my advantage. So once I determined what states, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing my home pattern state release. I put together a list of what states were going to be released between that August and December timeframe. And I did this by week. Also on the home pattern virtual road trip, I did road stops as well. We pulled over for some little rest stops. And in the rest stops, I let my newsletter people into what I was doing in my personal life. I'm moving. I'm getting ready to pack up everything and we're heading north. So my newsletter followers, they got a sneak peek of all the chaos that was happening on in the back end. But so what I then did was I went into Flowdesk and I scheduled these newsletters. I scheduled the blogs and I scheduled the social media posts to all three of my social media platforms. And to do that, that's one email newsletter, blog, social media post a week that was going out. A lot of planning because I had to have time to be able to create all those things. So what I would do at this point, we weren't packing our house yet. We were just traveling back and forth. So I used really the month of August to in the evening sit down and was on my computer for hours, making sure I was showing up for my customers in the different platforms that I use to share my patterns. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it was you get questions from your customers in the middle via email. when you go to my website, they can talk to me on the virtual chat, and you're still having customers talk to you. So what I wanted to ensure too is whenever I did get a message, an automatic reply would go to the person contacting me, letting me know Brooke's going to get back to you in 24 hours. And that is a commitment that I made to my customers. I wanted to make sure that even though I have all this chaos going on in the background, I am still available, but please give me 24 hours to get back to you. Um, the other thing that I thought of, so it's time to pack the house. It's September, kind of waiting to the last minute, packing up the house, getting ready to transition. And I have a whole quilt studio full of patterns and fabric that sometimes is cut and sent to customers as they purchase it. I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to pack these things up. I'm going to get an order and I'm not going to be able to find anything. And so I thought, okay, I have to make sure I stay organized. So my business was one of the last things that actually got packed up. In addition to that, my business went into my vehicle. So my husband and I, after we packed, we had a moving company come in, load the boxes. My business materials went in the car with me to drive to Michigan because that way I knew I have my patterns, I've got my bubble envelopes, I have my labels, everything is at my reach. When I do get orders, I can go ahead and make it happen. So as orders are coming in during this move, there were times where we had just arrived. I'm getting orders. I typically ship my orders within 24 hours. It's also another commitment I like to make to my customers, but I wouldn't have been able to do it in 24. I needed like 48. I had to get things out of my car. Like, again, chaos is going on. And so I would just email my customers and say, listen, you've ordered these printed patterns. I just need a couple days till the weekend. I just moved. We just arrived. I will get them quickly. And so I did. I kept that commitment always within the time frame that I promised, but I was communicating with them. So again, talking about that communication is so important. I was letting them know, thank you for your order. I greatly appreciate you. I just moved and I promise you I will ship you this pattern in 2 days. And at that 2-day mark, they received the tracking number and they knew that their patterns were on the way. And I hope my customers appreciated that, because, and I think that they did because I was very open and I was very open and honest with them. And just kind of sharing with them that, hey, I got a lot going on. I'm human too. I want to fulfill your order, but it is going to take a little bit of time to get there. So I think that they appreciate that. And also, it takes a little stress off of you. Just being open and honest during this very stressful time in your life.
I love that you talk about open communication. I think that you're right. That is very, very important, especially when you're moving. And I also love that you used your move as content for
Yes.
your newsletters. I think that we can work in what we're doing in real life as content, and it helps us not feel like we have to recreate stuff all the time.
Yes, 100%. I want it. One thing that I love is I like to go on social media and what posts attract me to them. And I love when people show the inside of their studios. I am the person zooming in on the phone. I want to see what you've got, what type of notions are you using? And so when I was taking my followers along with me, they knew that we were moving, we're relocating, and then they also saw the blank canvas of my quilting studio because in this house I got to have a quilting studio, which really excited me. The last house I had a quilting studio, but it was shared with a guest room. So in this house, I have my own quilting studio, and it was completely bare bones. And I asked quilters, "What would you do with this space?" What would you do? And the main things that they told me was lighting. Make sure you've got great lighting, have a design board, Brooke, and have an area to be able to cut and iron. And I took that feedback to heart. And that's exactly how I created my studio. So if you're interested in what my studio looks like, take a look on Instagram. I did give everyone a sneak peek into my quilting studio, gave a quick tour, and I'll be giving more tours in the upcoming months and doing some videos and showing each station of my quilt studio because, as you can imagine, as an engineer, yes, I did draw it out and I did have a plan and I executed to that plan.
Makes sense, it makes sense. If you are wondering what she showed already, she showed her fabric and it looks amazing, so go take a look.
It's like Skittles. It's just a rainbow of happiness, and it was my vision, and I love it, and to be honest, sometimes I just stare at it, and it's so inspirational to see those bright colors. Um, it's yeah, it's over here on the side, so if I keep looking, that's why. That's what I'm looking at is the fabric wall, and it's just I love it, absolutely love it, so I'm very excited with my space. I have been able to fire up the sewing machine. I did upgrade. I'm on a baby lock Altair now, which I absolutely love. Fired up the sewing machine. I've completed a couple quilts, um, as well as getting ready to. I'm designing a brand new quilt that's TBD on when it's going to be released. And then I think because of all the states are wrapping up, Brooke's going to take a little moment. I'm going to step back and I'm going to work on a quilt project that I've been wanting to do for myself. So I think I'm going to focus on some really fun quilting and working on patterns that someone else writes and just get that little recharge that we need at times. But looking, keep an eye on my website, social media, all of the things, newsletter, because there are new patterns coming out constantly, and right now they're coming out every week for everybody.
So that leads me right into, do you have anything else coming up that you would like to share?
Let's see. So I'm going to H&H. Very excited. It's my first time attending, going in a couple of weeks, something that I've been working on. I don't have a booth. But what I want it to be is a human walking marketing billboard was my goal. And so if you see me at H&H, if you hear this before H&H, please come up and talk to me. If not, and you met me, if you hear this after H&H, I hope we had a chance to connect. So I'm really excited. Have a plan already in place of different professional development sessions I'm going to be going to. Have some appointments scheduled that I'm excited to meet people face to face. So, I've taken vacation from my day career and I'm investing in my business for 4 whole days and I'm very excited about it. So I will be in Chicago. And then other than that, like I mentioned, just rolling out the rest of the home pattern series that will wrap up in early July. And then we'll see what happens next after that.
That is so exciting. I'm really excited about Brooke because she's so close to me. I'm also in Metro Detroit, so we've actually gotten to do like meetings face to face, which is really exciting. And we're going to be at H&H, so I'm really excited to see you there too. Um, and the last thing I want to ask is where can people? Oh wait, before that, I almost forgot about our rapid fire. We got rapid fire
Let's do
questions.
it.
All right, so these don't have to be super quick, but yeah. Okay, so first one. What color do you struggle with including in your quilts?
I struggle with red, and I think it's because it's not my favorite color. I have to be honest. I am a teal, purple, pink, yellow. I'm just not into red. So, I do have when I did And the Rockets Red Glare, and I brought bright red, white, and blue into that pattern. And using red was the first time I've ever made a pattern with red. So yeah, I struggle with red because it's not my favorite color, and I apologize to all the red lovers in the world.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, next question, and I think I know the answer to this. Is it do you prefer yardage or pre-cuts?
Cuts, absolutely. Right. So it may have been different than what you thought. I love yardage for the fabric wall because it makes it look pretty. But when I'm actually cutting fabric for my pixelated quilts, 2.5 inch charm packs, arm bars, belly rolls, air cakes, those all work for my patterns and they're super simple for me to handle. I like to be able to have the fabric in a small quantity, run that through the quilt, and get to piecing quicker than cutting.
Makes sense. It makes sense. I know I'm fascinated on the grid that you talked about because I've seen you
Oh,
on social media share that, and I'm like, how is she doing that?
Yes,
Like,
I love the grid, love it. And also if anyone that's listening is interested in the grid, feel free to contact me. I do teach classes on pixelated quilting, how I use the grid. It is a game changer for me. I use the grid on every single pixelated design that I do, and I'm always happy to share tips and tricks. So there's just a little bit more information there.
excellent. Okay, and next question is your favorite notion. What is your favorite notion?
It is called it's a binding tool. It's a binding assist ruler, and it's called Vintage by Janae is the website. So to let everybody in on my little secret, I don't like to bind because let's be honest, by the time I get to binding, honestly, guys, I'm done with the quilt. Like I'm over it. And I just want it to hurry up and just be done and getting out of my space so it can be hung on the wall. So when I get to binding, I'm just like, I got to get this over with. So for many years, I struggled with binding. And so I've tried all the notions and tools. And so I found this binding tool, again, Vintage by Janae. It's a small ruler about this big, and it's to help with miter corners, and it has helped me tremendously. She has a great YouTube video on her site to show you how to use the ruler in different ways. And on my social media channels, you'll also see videos of me showing you how I use the ruler too. So game changer, best notion.
Excellent. Next question is who is inspiring you right now? And they don't have to be in the quilting world.
So who is inspiring me? Honestly, Anybody with anybody that's designing with bright color. So it doesn't have to be in quilting. So if you were to take my cell phone and and scroll through my Instagram feed, you're going to see not just quilting, but you're going to see cupcake design. You're going to see artists using acrylic to paint. You are going to see, and I just love this because I'm such a bedazzler girl, and I love the bling. The artists who are using crystals to bedazzle like books and Stanley mugs, and I'm there for it. I love it. But the reason why I'm so drawn to them, this type of posts, is because of the color. I love vibrant color. I love using color. I love color that is playing well together, but also contrasting too. It interests me. So yes, I would say anybody out there in the world that is colorful, bright, vibrant, I'm going to be inspired by you.
I feel like your nails are telling that story too. I've been watching.
Oh, yeah, totally. I just got them done yesterday.
Next question is what is the most rewarding part of your business?
Hearing from customers. I love when customers send me a message or an email and they tell me, I just finished your pattern. Here's a photo of the finished quilt, and it's going to my son or my daughter. And I absolutely love that. I love hearing from my customers, and I love seeing the finished quilts that they're working on.
That's beautiful. Last question is how many quilts are you, with you in the room right now?
Good question. So I have to be honest, only one right now because my space is clean. So the only quilt that I have right now is the Jeep quilt. Several of my other quilts are at a quilt show right now with a store in Ohio for samples. And then the rest of my quilts are stored. I have to admit, not everything is unpacked from the move. And so some of that is my quilts. I haven't started hanging things on the wall except for this. This is honestly the first thing that we hung up, was a curtain rod so I could display a quilt in my quilting studio. So quilts will definitely be displayed throughout the house. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much for being here. Before we go, I'd love for you to share where everyone can connect with you.
Yes. Oh, I would love everyone to reach out to me. So there's a couple different ways to contact me. I have a website, brooksbitchinstitches.com. Go to my website and you can get direct links to my Pinterest, my Facebook, and my Instagram accounts, as well as email. I'm also on Etsy. As well. So Etsy has my digital patterns, and then my website actually has the digital patterns plus printed format patterns, as well as some notions, The 10 Sister Easy Piecing Grids are also on there for sale, as well as some fabric. So please check it out. Please contact me if you have questions. I just love to connect with everyone.
Thank you for being here, Brooke. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a day full of creativity. Bye, everyone.
That's a wrap on today's conversation. We hope it gave you something real to take back to your business.
And if you liked this episode, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more quilters find the show and feel a little less alone on their entrepreneurial journey.
And if you want more support from behind the scenes content to live chats, you'll find more in our Quilting on the Side community on Patreon. And as always, don't forget to do
a little quilting on the side.